The Cobalt Migration, Chapter 6. Julian Phillips with Tom Luong. July 10, 2018. All rights reserved. If you are enjoying this series, please like us on your Facebook. The Cobalt Migration is an online novel, with weekly new chapters presented in our unique Read Me a Movie format. Now seeking your business sponsorship for dramatic readings from live talent. Chapter 6. Do you believe in aliens? Do aliens believe in you? Does it matter? Does anyone really know or have proof? If there was certain proof, what would it mean to you? Would you find it to be meaningful? Why, or how?
Fee, fine, foe, fum. I smell the blood of an alien.
The New Mexico hillsides lay beneath the golden sun like eggs on a plate, more like large mounds, flat and long. By that time, things had changed again, and ended up exactly as they were, for those involved. Melu Tanaka had found a new home in America, with Philip. And there was love between them, no one could really deny it.
Fee, fine, foe, fum. I smell the blood of an alien.
It was a dry land, with only a few places for shade trees and flowing water, and far between dry and duty towns and cities like Albuquerque or Santa Fe. Over Easy, New Mexico is part of the West that local residents know very well, is lonely, like a woman in a golden heat of summer blazing, tiny beads of sweat forming on her shoulders and neckline beside the hotel pool. Fee. Fi. Fo. Fum. I smell the blood of an alien.
As the World War years ended, slowly and painfully giving way to another time and another era, Corso's service to the Air Force and the U.S. government also changed. Relocation to his New Mexico home, which was like a small rancho, made sense. The colonel was a soldier, but not in battle. His considerable contribution as a military commander had earned him a pleasant retreat, that is, as someone trained to plan military actions, troop movements, resource transport, attacks, the disposition of ships at sea, fuel use, munitions, food and water for soldiers, etc. So although his body and physical reality had by then, about year 1947, moved 10,000 miles and more from the scene at the Asian-Pacific War Theater, his mind and memories would never really leave those places. This was true for many dragged into battles and war, and Corso was a compassionate person who saw value in kindness and peace. Harder to forget, less likely to leave it behind, unavailable to change by virtue of the enormous impact the World War had created in millions of ruined, hurt and harmed lives. Memories, embedded to the violated nervous system of the human being, in war, crime, violence, and the natural course of events, even in birth, or polluted cities, or an accidental harm like cooking dinner with sharp knives as one may cut a finger, pain, bleeding, urgency, then to heal or repair, or memories of poorly administered drugs, powerful chemical attacks, powerful alcohol, tobacco, opium, to soothe and calm the discomfort of the broken bones and broken backs of even 1,000 years of war and fear and pain and memories, inner scars and wounds the body cannot forget. New Mexico after the war promised Corso and Melu a new beginning, and their love somehow healed their hearts from all of the above. If they could not forget the bombing of Hiroshima, perhaps the starry night sky, the cool evening breeze over the hot hills and dry, dusty farm roads, and the tender company they kept, would suffice to pass the time more pleasantly. Corso had acquired the ranch house on the outskirts of Santa Fe years before, early in his military career. South of the city by 10 miles, on a secondary highway and not easy to find unless you knew the way, A long dirt and gravel drive ran off from the main road where traffic would pass in the night. If he couldn't sleep, the sound of the long-distance 16-wheeler trucks as their giant tires rolled at speed on the ribbed asphalt washboard was like a former dream of travel, stars, clouds, trees and birds, there on his pillow. Where they might be bound, where they may be going, what they were carrying inside the trailers, who the drivers were, what their lives were like, where they lived and their families, what was happening on the roads, what the coyote nearby on the hillside in the darkness saw or heard as they rolled and rolled and rolled, into the distance and further still, until the unique and recognizable sound of the tires on the road became a sort of grinding sound, was then gone. The quiet night hours held a special appeal, especially for one to whom life had included the thunderous and lethal sounds of late-era war. He loved his home and filled it with fine antiques, unusual artwork, rare books, a large pantry for food and wine, his favorite dog he called Poochie, 2 cats, an underground basement with a year's worth of supplies, as well as guns and weapons, medical supplies, and flowers. To bring Milou home with him was like a bright red ribbon topping a Christmas present that would yield 100 more gifts. Not a cat. Not a house pet. Not a chair. Not a rare book. Milou was truly someone special in his life, and with her strange claim of missing time just before the fire bombs, even more special and dear to him, as one her would lay down his life to protect. Philip also realized, by year 1946 and 1947, that Milou's fears and anxiety could only be related or reported as missing time. All the rest, from her own account, was shaky at best. Although Milou was at ease and calm, anyone would think her mad, and so as she had promised herself, she had to let it go and keep it as if secret. The hours of her life that she thought of as some sort of alien abduction, were also a mystery to herself. As with many extreme or traumatic events in our lives, the aware mind needed to compartmentalize or block out the pain and painful memories. And by her own efforts, Milou could not retrieve the memories successfully. They seemed like a swirling miasma of flickering fleshly flame and fantasy, trapping her in her own body, with an unwelcome and unhappy totality that left her weak and even sick. So young, so beautiful, and such an ugly, horrid thing. The timing of her adversity, as only 2 weeks before the Hiroshima bombs, meant nothing, after all. Perhaps her mind experienced an ominous premonition, that was so powerful to her that she lost consciousness, somehow preconscious, knowing the atomic bombs would fall and end all those lives in a poison flame and flash. But as her newlywed husband, Phil knew deeply within he would either learn to love her or not, and that his choice to love included care of her mental health. That she kept such memories, and appeared to anyone of her witness thereof, as an unreliable, or even lunatic. Discarded. Hopeless. Thanks for the memories. After the baby was born, things were much more simple. The child was a boy, and they named him Charles, or Charlie. Philip was sometimes known as Charles, as one with more than a few names. Privately, the couple chose the name because Philip's father's brother, his uncle, also had that first name, and was a beloved family favorite character. So the baby's full name was to be Charles Lincoln Corso. The middle name was Milou's idea, as her favorite legendary American hero, U.S. Civil War President Abraham Lincoln. Philip recalled their baby name conversation, with the Japanese Lotus girl by then way pregnant. He said to her, "If we name him after Abraham Lincoln, Milou, he may be thought of as a Republican later in life. Maybe we should choose a less famous middle name?" It's only his middle name. As he grows to adult age he can always choose his own politics, Milou answered. Her pregnant belly seemed massively large against her normally very thin frame. With a baby on the way, this sort of playful talk is much what any couple would enjoy, and they seemed delighted. But obviously or not, Philip found he only needed to choose to care for the baby and mother, regardless of any confusion about the father. A paternity DNA test at the doctor's office demonstrated the baby was Phil's, and no monster from outer space. This was satisfaction enough. For many months and even years later, the idea that Melu had somehow been sexually tampered with on a UFO spaceship was dismissed as some kind of pregnancy-related hysteria, or prepartum depression. This was a common enough condition, among women, given the horrors of the wars. All who knew them assumed Melu had some sort of a condition or cognitive dissonance, and they would speak of it no more as a social courtesy to be polite. Charles Lincoln Corso it shall be, then, Philip said. Yet somehow in his thoughts, Melu's missing time and UFO fears, nagged at his thoughts and dreams and conscience, like Saint Joseph and Saint Mary, at a bizarre wedding shower party. Found to be pregnant before the formal marriage, along with the mother's eccentric claim of an encounter with an angelic being, the situation served mostly to save face, and maintain Colonel Corso's reputation, which was critical to his career success in the Air Force. With the war ending, friends and admirers even recommended that Phil run for U.S. Congress, or other high office. He pondered in his thoughts, can a holy angel from the ancient Bible be thought of as an alien? This too, he knew, was meaningless. Their first year in New Mexico passed slowly. The baby was quite healthy, fat as a little piggy in his infancy, growing and growing. Few joys would compare, for Phil, to that of just playing with his child. As the baby grew, holding him, rocking him when he was crying or upset or sick, cleaning up his smelly diapers and wiping his bottom mess, waiting for the hours of gentle sleep, learning, feeding, teaching. The baby's first words were "da" for dad or daddy, and also the name of his favorite food, a popular breakfast cereal. The little one loved to sit or lay on Phil's stomach, or roll around small colored blocks on the rug, or tease the dog Poochie. Beware of thoughts that linger, Phil reminded himself. The baby is okay. Melu is fine. The war is over. There are no UFO aliens or spaceships, and there never were. Philip Corso's tradition was Catholic, as far as religion. Melu was Buddhist, also only by family tradition. Neither of them were very zealous of religion. The wedding had been very hasty, given the circumstances, and they had been a couple for several years before Hiroshima, and sexually active as well.
Said Bixie Mim, Mr. Corso.
And thou as well, Father Brattles. The Santa Fe diocese priest was the esteemed and honorable Archbishop Signore Brattles. He had baptized the new baby soon after Melu gave birth. Melu and Philip were social friends with some of the parishioners. Everyone called the man Father Brattles. He was very large man, tall and portly, Caucasian, and of the Jesuit path, older than Phil, very vigorous and active in his church organizations, religion and charity. A long passenger train from Los Angeles had brought Father Brattles back home to New Mexico. None may have thought him a priest or holy man, except for his books and a large silver cross on a chain. Phil met him at about midday on the busy train platform, by arrangement for the two men to have lunch or an early dinner. Melu was happy at home with the baby. It was late October, 1948.
How's the wife and new baby, Phil?
Father Brattles asked. Just fine, just fine. The house cat scratched the kid 2 weeks ago. They were playing. We took him to the doctor, painful, but all is well.
Oh no.
The Archbishop said. He seemed legitimately concerned, as if the baby had broken a leg.
Did you have the cat destroyed?
The cat? Oh no, it was no one's fault. There was no infection. We spared his life. The cat, I mean. The two men enjoyed their dinner of pasta, wine and bread. Brattles knew about Corso's Air Force service, so they talked about the war, politics of the day, the future. The seasonal bliss of the Santa Fe, New Mexico fall was charming and welcoming. Corso had his own plans to be part of a new Air Force program in Roswell, many miles away. The frozen hatred of the war years slowly gave way to a different time and a different attitude. Corso and his new family could now look forward to prosperous years. So what do you think about these stories about unidentified flying objects, Brattles? Do you think they are real? The priest seemed alert and curious. He had a big face, a large jaw that might even be called deformed by some. He was a very big man.
Oh yes. UFOs. I've heard of that. Yes, fascinating, very curious indeed.
He wiped up the flavorful tomato sauce from his dinner plate, smiling and listening. To be sure, sir, Corso replied. But are they real? What do you believe? Brattles paused.
Please, sir. I must inquire of His Holiness the Pope about this question.
But what about you? Personally, I mean.
Me? Oh, I guess it may be possible. All things are possible. Little green men from Mars. Spacemen. Flash Gordon. Orson Welles. Jules Verne.
Phil was enjoying the dinner and conversation. He liked to spend time with all sorts of people, especially educated types, or open-minded people he met in his work. Over the next few years that followed, his friendship with Father Brattles became an every-month dinner conversation. The unexpected result was that the Archbishop would help form the philosophical and moral underpinnings of Colonel Corso's unique and critical role in the establishment of a secret program to train qualified recruits into space, to explore the local planets. And this was many years before the first NASA voyages to the Earth's moon and Buzz Aldrin's famous footsteps thereupon. For practical purposes, at that time in year 1948, no man had even flown into Earth orbit, and real knowledge about space was almost nil. One of those recruited into this clandestine U.S. and Western space program would be his own son, Charles Lincoln Corso, years later.
It's no child's play, Corso. Let's compare your plan to the children's story, Jack and the Beanstalk. Who is the giant, and who is Jack the Giant Killer? These alien guests may be deadly or lethal to human life. And your global program will always remain a secret. Who is the giant?
The U.S. Air Force calls it a covert operation, or Black Ops. It means a secret. So I can't answer your question, Reverend. But I can tell you, no such conspiracy exists, and that is God's honest truth. Because it is my job is to create one. Sidbixi Mim, Signore Brattles. We are inventing a conspiracy, you and I.